Hi everybody, this is Bonnie Barker with Bonnie Bay Crochet, and today I want to show you how to make my Wisteria scarf. This is featuring a new cable, and I'm really excited to share that with you. And it does kind of look like the plant Wisteria, if you've ever seen that growing in the trees, particularly in the southeast United States. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing to see in the spring. Now, this particular scarf is crocheted to be a spring or summer scarf made of silk and linen, and I'll show you more about that yarn in just a bit. Now, I also crocheted another, which is the same design, but using a thicker DK weight yarn. I just did this to show you that you can make a stole or a wrap or a simple scarf using the same design that I'm going to show you. Okay, this is an intermediate level design because it does involve cabling front and back post crochet stitches, and they are going to be demonstrated for you in a very clear manner in just a minute. Now, if you are a confident beginner and you want to give this a shot, I encourage you to go ahead and give it a try, maybe using some of your stash yarn that perhaps is not that important to you, so that you can learn some of these stitches. I say all this because I want to encourage confident beginners to just learn another stitch and to keep building your crochet toolbox. I think this will keep the craft alive and well in your heart and in your life for many years to come, and that is one of my goals. One more thing, I do have a free newsletter that is sent out a couple of times a month. I never share my email list with anybody, so you don't have to worry about it going everywhere, because it will not. I give you my word on that. I do hope you consider that. All right, well, let's go ahead and let me show you what you're going to need. For this project, I'm going to be using a fingering weight yarn by Yarn Indulgences, and I'll have this information in the video description should you want to try to get this. This is a hand-dyed yarn. Again, it's a light fingering weight, and it is silken linen. Each of these hanks, which I've already wound, has 490 yards or 480 meters, and again 65% silk and 35% linen. Now, if you don't have yarn like this, don't worry. Any fingering weight yarn would suffice, and in fact, if you wanted to use a heavier weight yarn, that would be fine. Just be sure that you size your hook to the yarn that you choose. For this project, I'm going to be using a size F or 5 or 3.75 millimeter. Be careful to pay attention to the millimeter size because it does have different names outside the US. I know the English can often have 4.0 for the size F, so let's just be sure that we're looking at the 3.75 millimeter for this project. And as always, I recommend that you have a pair of sharp scissors and a yarn needle handy for hiding those loose ends after we complete the project. To begin, we're going to work a slip knot and a starting chain of 68 chains. After completing the 68 chains, we're going to start row 1 by working a double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook. So 1, 2, 3, this is the 4th chain, and I'm just going to work in the side of that chain with a double crochet, and then we're going to work a double crochet in each of the remaining chains as well, and that will give us a total of 65 double crochets at the end of row 1. So this is what you should have after completing one row. So we're going to turn for row number 2. We're going to chain 2. We're going to skip the first stitch. Now we're going to work a series of front post and back post, and we're going to do it this way. We're going to work 2 front post double crochets, and then we're going to work 2 back post double crochets. And for the back post, I'm just coming in the the back side, the hook goes around the stitch like this, and then we complete that double crochet. For front post, the hook goes into front door, comes out the side here, and we're just giving these stitches a belt, okay, around the waist. So 2 front post double crochets followed by 2 back post double crochets, and I call this double ribbing, and we're going to work that all the way across. At the end of row 2, we're going to work a half double crochet worked right into the turning chain, not into a loop of the turning chain, but right into the turning chain, just like so. Now we're going to chain 2, and now we're going to reverse the direction of these post stitches. So we have front post stitches showing here. We're going to reverse that, and we're going to make these 2 back post double crochets. Okay, I am skipping that first stitch just to be clear. So 2 back post double crochets, and we're going to follow that with 2 front posts. These are presenting as back post. So we're going to work front post double crochets, and what this is going to do is going to create a 2-stitch basket weave for this project, for the ribbing. So it's going to be a 2-stitch basket weave ribbing. So now we have 2 front posts again, and we're going to work these as back post double crochets, just like that. And then again 2 front post double crochets. So go ahead and work this, reversing each of these all the way across. This row ends with 2 front post double crochets, and then we're going to work a half double in that turning chain. All right, so that's what you should have after completing 3 rows. Now for row 4, we're going to chain 2, and we're just going to duplicate what we see. If we see back post, we're going to work back post. If we see front post, we're going to work front post. So you can see this is going to be a 2-row repeat. So again, skip that first stitch, back post double crochet in those first 2 stitches, and then front post in the next 2 stitches. And so continue that all the way across, 2 back post and 2 front post. At the end of row 4, we also end with a half double crochet. Now just for the record, the project that we're working on will always end with a half double crochet. So if you don't see the end of the project or the end of the row, that's what you need to do. All right, so now for row 5, we're going to chain 2. And since we already have 2 rows that mirror the same type of stitch, like front post here and 2 back post here, it's time to change it again. So we're going to skip that first stitch, and where we see back post double crochets starting row 5, we're going to work 2 front post double crochets followed by 2 back post double crochets. Okay, and let's do that again. 2 front post double crochets followed by 2 back post double crochets. So go ahead and work that all the way across. This is what you should have after completing 5 rows. For row 6, we're going to chain 2, and we're just going to duplicate what we see. We see front post double crochets. Again, skip that first stitch, and we work 2 front post double crochets, and we follow that with 2 back post double crochets, and that's going to be our repeat all the way across the row. 2 front post double crochets followed by 2 back post double crochets, and then of course at the end of the row you're going to work a half double crochet into that turning chain. So go ahead and finish row 6. All right, this is what you should have after completing 6 rows. Now we're going to work row 7. Again, starting with a chain 2, skip that first stitch. Now it's time to reverse what we did here. We have front post presenting to start. We're going to work 2 back post over those. Again, continuing this 2-stitch basket weave ribbing. So 2 back post double crochets followed by 2 front post double crochets. And that's going to be your repeat all the way across the row. When you get to the end of the row, make sure you work a half double crochet in the turning chain, just the way we've been doing. Actually, it's up here. There we go. Up here. So go ahead and complete row 7. This is what you should have after completing 7 rows. Now we're going to do something very important. We're going to upsize our hook 1 size to size G. And again, to emphasize the millimeter, this is a size 6 in the US. It may be different outside the US, but the main thing is it's a 4.00 millimeter crochet hook. Now for row number 8, we're going to begin setting down the pattern stitch and working the foundation section for these cables. So we're going to start off with a chain 2. Hopefully it won't slip out. And again, make sure you're using that G or 4.00 millimeter crochet hook. We're going to maintain the basket weave for the first 6 stitches. So we're going to work 2 back post double crochets followed by 2 front post double crochets and 2 more back post double crochets. After that, we're going to work a wattle stitch, and that's spelled W-A-T-T-L-E, and it's a simple stitch. We work a single crochet in that next stitch, a chain 1, and a double crochet in the same place, and these are going to act as spacers in between our cables. We're going to skip the next 2 stitches, and this is so that double crochet can kind of fill the gap there. After working that wattle stitch, we're going to skip 2 stitches, 1, 2, and then we're going to work front post double crochets in each of the next 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Take notice that I've worked those front post even though you have back post here, etc. We're not continuing this basket weave from this point up for the center part, but only for the 6 stitches on the side at the beginning of the row and at the end of the row. And you'll see that as the pattern develops. The next thing we do is work a half double worked into the top loops, and that's going to act as kind of a spacer inside the cable. After that, we are going to work the 4 post cable. We're going to go ahead and start that. We're going to skip these 2 stitches. We're going to work front post treble crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. Working in front of those 2 stitches, we're going to come over here and work front post trebles here and here. And for the treble, we're just working like you would a normal treble, but we're working it again as a post stitch, which means the hook works around the body of the stitch. If you need to learn more about these post stitches, because this is an intermediate project, but if you need to learn more, I'll put a link in the video description where you can learn some of these stitches. Probably will be a playlist. Okay, after that, let's stop and see what we have. We have 4 front post double crochets, a half double, and then we have that 4 post cable using front post treble crochets. So you see there's a lot of different stitches happening here, but they are all fundamentally normal regular stitches in crochet. All right, after that we're going to work another wattle stitch. Worked into the top loops, a single crochet, a chain 1, and a double crochet. Skip 2 stitches, 1, 2. Now we're going to start with the 4-post cable. So this work gets a little tricky, so hang with me here. Skip these 2 stitches, that's for the wattle stitch to fill in the gap, and then we're going to skip 2 more, 1, 2. So in total we're skipping 4 stitches here. But I wanted to understand, or to help you understand why. 2 for the wattle stitch and 2 for this 4-post cable. So front post treble in those next 2 stitches. And now working in front of those 2 stitches, we're going to front post treble in the last 2 stitches that we skipped. That would be the 3rd stitch that we skipped and the 4th. Okay. After that, we're going to work a half double in that next stitch, and do be careful that you're working in the next stitch. Oop, I just did what I was trying to explain. So I actually skipped an extra stitch here, so let's make sure that we're not skipping any extra stitches, just like that. Okay, otherwise you're going to have a shortage of stitches once you get to the end of the row. All right, after that we're going to work 4 front post double crochets. Okay, so let's pause again. So we have those 6 stitches at the beginning. Those are the ribbing, which is the basket weave 2 stitch, a wattle stitch, and then we have 1 cable here, which is the 4 front post double crochets, half double, and then our 4-post cable, and then another wattle stitch. And then we have the 4-post cable, a half double, and then 4 front post double crochets. So after that, we're going to work another wattle stitch, single crochet, chain 1, double crochet, worked into the same space. Skip 2 stitches, 1, 2, and then now we're going to start the next cable with 4 front post double crochets. Work a half double in that next stitch, and then now we're going to work a 4-post cable. We're going to skip 2 stitches, front post treble crochet in each of those next 2 stitches, working in front of those 2 stitches, front post treble crochet in those next, or the 2 stitches that were skipped. Okay, let's pause and take a look at what we have. Okay, after that we're going to work another wattle stitch, single crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and then skip 2 stitches, 1, 2 for the wattle stitch, and skip 2 more, 1, 2 more, so that you're skipping a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 before we work the next 4-post cable. So we're going to work front post treble in the next 2 stitches. So after working those 2 front post trebles, we're going to find, see, 1, 2, 3, the 3rd and the 4th stitches that we skipped. We're going to work front post treble. Another way of saying that would be the last 2 stitches that were skipped. We'll work that front post treble. All right, half double into the next stitch, working in those top loops, and then 4 front post double crochets. All right, and after that, we're going to work another wattle stitch worked into the top loops. Single crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet. Now we're at the end of the row here, so instead of skipping 2, we're going to actually skip 3. 1, 2, 3, and then we go to working those last 6 stitches. So 2 front post double crochet. This is working, continuing in that basket weave 2-stitch ribbing, and then we do 2 back post double crochets, and then 2 front post double crochets, and then a half double at the end of the row. Whew. So if you've made it through that far with me, I believe that is the hardest row of this entire project because we're establishing the foundation. So let's just review to make sure we did this right. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have this first 6 rows and the last 6 rows, well, plus the last row. Well, let's just say the last 7 rows here because you have the half double. But basically you have the two-stitch basket weave ribbing at the beginning and at the end of the row. And in between you have a wattle stitch. You have 1 cable here, a wattle stitch, 1 cable here, a wattle stitch, 1 cable, a wattle stitch, and 1 cable. And I'm considering each of these with the 4 posts. So let's take a look at that again. So it should start with those 4 front post doubles, and then the 4 post cable, then the 4 post cable, and then the 4 front post doubles, then 4 front post doubles, 4 post cable, 4 post cable, 4 front post double crochets. That's just to alternate that so we have an interesting pattern for our scarf or stole. All right, so now for row number 9, we are going to chain 2. Now we're going to reverse this again, and I'll just go ahead and inform you this basket weave will change at the end of 2 rows. So every time the back side is facing, this is kind of a rule you can try to remember. Whenever the back side of the work is facing, you are going to change the direction of the basket weave. So we're going to change this to 2 front post doubles, 2 back post doubles, and then 2 front post double crochets. Now when you're working, let's go ahead and flip it to the front. When you're working with the front side facing, you're just going to continue what you see. So if you see 2 back posts, you work 2 back posts, 2 front posts, 2 front posts, 2 back posts, 2 back posts, etc. So when the front side is facing, you just continue or maintain what you see with the ribbing. With the back side facing, you're always going to reverse what you see. Hope that's not too confusing. Then working in the wattle stitches is much easier for the rest of the rows because all we do is we're working in the chain 1 space created by the wattle stitch from the last row, and we work the single crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet in that very space. Now working over the cables, we're going to work 4 back post double crochets, a half double worked into the 2 loops of the half double, and then working over the 4 post cable, we just are going to work 4 back post double crochets, and they come in the order that you see the V's on top. So we're not crossing anything or doing these first or any of that. It's just straight across in the order that the stitches appear. And this is also a great time to get your nerve endings in your finger and your thumb ready and informed as to how to help you best, because these, the thumb and the tall man finger, honestly are my best friends for these kind of stitches. They help me to know where the stitches go, etc. All right, so the next thing is a wattle stitch. So we work a wattle stitch in that chain one space. It's not going to say this in the pattern because the wattle stitch is explained specifically, but when you work the wattle stitch, you're not working in the double crochet or the chain, or the single crochet stitch. You're only working in that chain one space. Okay, so now behind the next cable, we have the 4-post cable, and again, just back post double crochet over each of these 4 stitches in the order that they appear. A half double worked into the top of that half double, and then 4 more back post double crochets. And so that's the way you're going to work this across the row. And so I will continue working in the same manner, and I'll meet you at the next wattle stitch. At the end of the row, we're going to reverse, just like we did at the beginning. We're reversing the direction of the basket weave. So we're going to work 2 back post double crochets, 2 front post double crochets, and 2 more back post double crochets. Just remember what I said at the beginning of this row. When you have the back side facing, you're going to need to reverse, and then of course a half double at the end. So with the back side facing, you're always going to be reversing the direction of this basket weave at the beginning and at the end of the row. At the beginning of the row, with the front side facing, you will just maintain what you already see. All right, so let's go ahead and continue. For row 10, we're going to chain 2, and like I said, we're just going to continue the 2-stitch basket weave because the front is facing, and because that's the way the multiples worked out in this design. All right, then 2 back post double crochets. This is pretty much going to be a repeat of row 8, with the exception that it's being worked, not being worked into the foundation row. So I guess it is a little different, although the stitches will be the same. Okay, so after those front and back post double crochets, we're going to work a wattle stitch in the wattle stitch in that chain 1 space, just like that. Now we have front post double crochets. We're going to work 4 front post double crochets. We're just continuing to grow these stitches before we begin crossing them every which way. All right, we're growing these columns. Half double into the half double crochet. Let's go ahead and find, there we go, right into the top loops. And then we get to the 4-post cable, so we're going to cross this again. Skip the next 2 stitches, front post treble in the next 2 stitches, working in front of those 2 stitches, we're going to front post treble into the 2 stitches that we just skipped. Work a wattle stitch into the wattle stitch, and we're going to do it again, but in reverse order. Skip the next 2 stitches because we're going to work that 4-post cable again. Skip these 2, front post treble in the next 2 stitches, working in front of these 2 stitches. We're going to front post treble, if I can get this. There we go. Let's try that again. I had a little bit of trouble with the yarn splitting, unfortunately. I think that's just the nature of the linen and silk blend. All right, half double in that next half double. And then 4 front post double crochets. And then we work another wattle stitch worked into the chain 1 space. So let's go ahead and pause. You can see what we have. Alrighty. Now for the rest of this, again, I'll just talk this through with you. 4 front post double crochets, half double. We cross the cables with that 4 post cable, a wattle stitch worked into the chain 1 space. We cross the cables again to 4 post cable, half double, front post, 4 front post double crochets, a wattle stitch worked in that wattle stitch. Then we're going to work 2 back posts, 2 front posts, 2 back posts, and a half double in the turning chain. And again, we do what we see because we are maintaining with the front side facing. So go ahead, finish row 10. Row 11 is almost the same as row number 9, with the exception that you begin this with a chain 2, skip the first stitch, and we work 2 back post double crochets. Okay, so let's go ahead and do those, and then 2 front posts, because it's with the back side facing, we're reversing the basket weave. And am I repeating myself? Of course, that's what we teachers do. So thanks for your patience. If you're like, all right, I already know that. Well, there's probably someone out there like me who will have forgotten by now. So that's why I like to repeat. All right, wattle stitch in the wattle stitch. And I'm going to just tell you what you're going to do. 4 back posts double crochets, a half double, 4 back post double crochets, a wattle stitch worked in that chain 1 space, 4 back post, half double, 4 back post double crochets, etc. And after that last wattle stitch, we're going to reverse this because the back side is facing. I said it again. Okay, 2 front post double crochets, 2 back post doubles, 2 front post, and a half double in that turning chain. So go ahead and finish row 11. This is what you should have after completing 11 rows. Now we are to row number 12, and this is going to get exciting. This is where we are going to start crossing the columns. So far we've only crossed the stitches for the 4 post cables. Now we're going to cross these columns and to make them into larger cables. So we start again, chain 2, and we just maintain what we see because the front side is facing. So we have 2 back post double crochets, 2 front post double crochets, and 2 back post double crochets. Okay, let's do that one again. See, we all get to redo things sometimes more than once. So let's do that again. All right, so now we've got that. And we work a wattle stitch in that chain 1 space. After that, we are going to cross this with my particular style of cable crossing, which may be different from something you could have used in the past with another designer or pattern. Okay, so just stay with me on this. Skip 4 stitches, and in the half double, we're going to work a double crochet this time because it's a little bit longer of a stitch, and you'll see why. Now we're going to work front post trebles in each of the next 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4. After doing this, we're going to reach all the way across to that first stitch that we skipped, and we're going to front post treble here, 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 and here. It's going to feel like you're reaching a large distance, but I guess you are compared to some other styles of crochet. But just come over here and do them in that order: the first, second, the third, and then the fourth. This is our third stitch and the fourth. All right, now we come over to the wattle stitch and we work a wattle stitch. So let's talk just a minute about what we just did. This is what I like to call a front cross, because you crossed by working those last 4 stitches in front. Now we're going to do something similar but yet different. We're going to cross these 2 cables, but we're going to make it into a back cross, and I'll show you what that means. Skip the next 4 stitches, a double crochet, again just because it's a little bit longer of a stitch, front post treble in the next 4 stitches, and here's the 4th stitch. So now to do the back cross, we're going to wrap our hook for that treble. We're going to come in behind the stitches into this big opening right here, and we're going to use the nerve endings in our thumb and tall man finger there, and they are going to tell me that this is the stitch right here. So we locate that and we complete that front post treble. So it is a front post treble, and yet it is worked behind those other stitches. We're going to do that again. Come into this opening, find the second stitch, which is way here. So I accidentally crocheted over the 3rd stitch, so make sure you do the 2nd stitch. Again, using the nerve endings in your thumb and finger, and coming in again. Look for that 3rd stitch, which is right here. And there we go. This is felt more than seen. And then the last stitch, which is right here. It's right next to that half double crochet, so it's here. And we're going to work that front post treble crochet. So that is a back cross. Let's go ahead and work the wattle stitch, and then I'll give you a better look at what we've just done. Okay, so you see how this stitch, these stitches with the front cross are kind of going in this direction, and with the back cross, these other stitches are on top, and these are going pointing in a different direction. So these are going to help form our cables. So for the next 2 sets of cables, we're going to repeat what we just did here, and I'll do that with you again a little bit faster though. Skip 4 stitches. I'm going to work a double crochet instead of that half double. Front post treble in the next 4 stitches. Again, this is just the same that we did at the beginning of this row. Now for the front cross, what we're going to do is, working in front of those 5 stitches, we're going to work front post trebles here, 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 and here. And this is definitely easier than doing a back cross, but let's go ahead. 1, 2, whoops, 3, and 4. We're going to work a wattle stitch in that wattle stitch. Okay, front cross. Now for the back cross, skip 4 stitches, and then we again work a double crochet in that half double, and again 4 front post treble crochets. We work the treble crochets only when crossing cables. So that might be another thing to note to help you to understand, do I do this one or do I do that one? It's always going to be front or back post double crochets in this design unless you're crossing the cables somewhere. In that time you're going to be working trebles. Okay, so for the back cross, we're going to come in from the back side and we work front post trebles here, 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 and then here. So let's go ahead and pick out that first one, which is right here. That's one. Oh, let's try that one again. Cut that part out. So let's go ahead and do this back cross. Wrap the hook, come into that back side, and work that front post treble. That's one. Coming into this opening again, and this is the second stitch right here. So let's go ahead and wrap our hook around it. Let's try that one again. Hold on a second here. All right, so this is good that I'm struggling in front of the camera just a little bit, just so that you know you're not alone. Okay. That's two. And let's look at the third stitch. I've located it with my finger and thumb. That's three. And the last one, again, coming into that same opening, and the stitch is right here. And I'm just going to bring it up. Sometimes it helps if the thumb goes up into the opening so that you can pick those stitches out. All right, and then after that, I'll do that wattle stitch. And let's take a look. It's always good to check to see that you cross the stitches in the right way. Why? Have I ever had to rib out because I didn't do that right? Maybe more times than I would like to think. So this is going to be a front cross, a back cross, a front cross, a back cross. So I just verified that I did that properly, and then I'm going to finish out the row. Again, front side is facing, so we just do what we see for these ribbed basket weave stitches. And half double worked into the turning chain, and this is what you should have after completing 12 rows. Now for row 13, chain 2. And again, back side is facing, so we're going to reverse the basket weave. 2 front post double crochets, 2 back post, and 2 front post double crochets. All right, so I'm especially wanting to show you how to work behind these cables. Let's go ahead and do our wattle stitch first. Now working behind the cables, you're going to work them as they appear. All right, so we first have 4 back post double crochets, 1, 2, 3. It's a little bit tricky to see. There's one more right here, 4. Now let me show you what happens here. So now the next thing, you notice that there is no half double crochet, but this is where those 2 columns cross. So after you work those 4 back post double crochets, we're going to work a half double in between that last stitch and next stitch. It's just this big opening where the columns cross. Work a half double right there like that. And then we have 4 more back post double crochets. 1. And do make sure that you count to 4 with each of these, because it's very easy to leave one of these stitches out and then you'll have to rip out and correct it at some point. All right, so after that we work a wattle stitch, which you should be getting good at these. Single crochet, chain one, double crochet, worked in that chain one space. Then we're going to do it again. It may present a little differently to your fingers because now the different side is on the front, but it's okay. Follow these stitches. You can look at the V's at the top of the stitches and do them in that order. 1, 2, and the third one, 3, and the next one, 4. And again, after that fourth one, that's where the cables or those two columns cross. Put a half double right in between, and then back post double crochets over the next 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, now you see another stitch here. That's actually the double crochet. And just for those of you who are good math students and say, she's adding stitches in here. Well, I am. I have added that half double back into my work, but to make up for it in our stitch count, I'm also skipping the stitch here. I skipped it over here, although it was harder to see. So just trust me on this. The stitch count will remain constant. All right, wattle stitch in that next space, the chain one space, and then we're just going to do that again with the back post double crochet, half double in between the last stitch and next stitch, and then 4 more back post. Let me just go ahead and do that with you in case you're not comfortable seeing it. Okay, so the first set, you're going to see the ones that are underneath. We'll do those first. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Even if I don't do it out loud, I'm counting to myself all the time, believe me, when I do these, just so that I don't get it wrong. And then a half double in between that last stitch and next stitch, and then 4 more, and these are the ones that are crossed on top. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And just I'll point out I added a stitch here. I'm also skipping this, and that was the double crochet that we used to reach across for those crossings. Okay, wattle stitch and the wattle stitch, and now the first stitches we work are going to be on top, but again, it's where these appear. They appeared, the ones underneath appeared first, and then the ones on top. Now the ones on top, and then the ones underneath after crossing them. So 4 back post double crochets. I hope that wasn't confusing. If it was, just strike it from the record, as they say in court. And if you're understanding this fine without the added verbiage, good for you. All right, 4 back post doubles, half double. Now working those other 4 back post double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And remember that we skipped this stitch. You probably won't even notice it, but we skipped this. That's the double crochet again. Wattle stitch in the wattle stitch. And again, we're with the back side facing, so we're going to reverse the basket weave. So back post double crochets, and then 2 front post doubles, 2 back post double crochets, and a half double at the end of this row. So let's go ahead and take a look at the front side after working 13 rows. Okay, so now what we need to do for row 14, we're going to be repeating the next 2 rows that I show you. This is going to be row 14 and row 15. We're going to repeat both of those rows 4 times. Okay, so I'm going to show you these 2 rows, and then you're going to repeat them. The only thing that might be different, that will be different, is the basket weave ribbing on each side. Make sure that you're just changing, you know, when the front side is facing, you crochet it as is. When the back side is facing, change the direction from front to back or back to front. All right. As long as you remember that, you'll be able to repeat these next 2 rows without issue. All right. We begin this row just like the others. 2 front post, 2 front back, 2 back post rather, and again 2 front posts, because we are just doing what we see. We're not changing anything with the front side facing. All right, waddle stitch in that next stitch. Okay, now this is the important part. We've crossed these columns, and this column is the one with the 4 post cable. This one is not. So this one has crossed under the bridge, so to speak. We need to remember to reinstate the 4 post cable here. So for doing that, we're going to skip the next 2 stitches of that 4 stitch column, front post treble in the next 2 stitches, working in front of those 2 stitches, front post treble in the 2 skipped stitches. All right, then we half double into that half double, and then front post double crochet in the next 4 stitches. All right, so let's pause so we see how the 4 post cable was here, and then now it's starting up on this side. Then waddle stitch, and if you've done the preceding rows correctly, then you just read what you've already done. So we have 4 front post double crochets here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Half double in that half double right there. Now this is I'll show you a mistake that I have made several times, because I did make another one of these. I found myself just go ahead and making 4 more front post double crochets instead of realizing, oh wait a minute, this is, you can see underneath here, it's coming up under. This is going to be the 4 post cable again, so make sure you work the 4 post cable. Skip 2 stitches, front post treble in the next 2 stitches. I mean, you can easily read this in the written pattern, but I think once you've done this just even a couple times and see what's going on, you won't have to be married to the pattern, so to speak, for every row. Okay, so working in front of those 2 stitches, front post treble in the 2 stitches that we skipped. And then again a waddle stitch. So let's go ahead and take another look at this. So you see the 4 post cable coming, peeking out here, and this one coming out over here. So we'll just do the same on this side, and let's read the stitch before we just start crocheting. So we have the 4 post cable coming again up underneath that stitch. So we skip the next 2 stitches, 1, 2, front post treble in the next 2 stitches, and then working in front of those 2 stitches, front post treble in the 2 stitches that we skipped. All right, half double in the half double, and 4 front post double crochets. So you can see this is just a very visual design, and once you understand how these cables are completed, it does simplify. All right, wattle stitch. We work a wattle stitch in that chain 1 space. And let's go ahead and finish this one. So this 4-post cable is going to be on the other side, so let's go ahead and just do the 4 front post double crochets. I know I'm doing this a little on the fast side. You can always slow this down if you need to by clicking on that icon at the bottom of the screen. It looks like a gear shaped thing. It'll bring up, it may be at the top, maybe at the top of the screen, depending on the device you're using, but there is that little gear shaped item. You click on that and that does bring up a speed menu, and you can choose a slower speed, but I'm just doing very basic stitches as I explain. All right, half double and the next half double. Now remember, this is where that 4-post cable is coming up under. So let's go ahead and skip the next 2 stitches and do a 4-post cable. See, once you do these 4-post cables after a major cable crossing, it's actually easy to remember because you have the 4-post cable there to remind you. But it's just when you make these big crossings like I'm doing here that you don't have that visual reminder, and you just have to pay attention a little bit more. All right, so we've crossed that. We're going to work a wattle stitch in the wattle stitch, and it's time to just maintain with these ribbing stitches: 2 back post, 2 front post, and 2 back post. And a half double at the end of the row. All right, so this is what we should have after completing, let's see, 14 rows. Okay, so now for row 15, it's going to be very similar to what we did already. We're going to, I'm just going to talk you through this one. It's time to change the direction, so we'll do 2 back posts, 2 front posts, 2 back posts, the wattle stitch, and then we work 4 back post double crochets, half double, 4 back post double crochets, wattle stitch, etc. And then when you get to the other end after the wattle stitch, 2 front post, 2 back post, 2 front post, and a half double in the turning chain, again reversing the direction of these stitches. All right, so go ahead and work row 15. All right, this is what you should have after completing 15 rows. Now for rows 16 through 21, we're going to repeat rows 14 and 15 3 times more. Okay, now you can go back, look at the bottom of the screen, and I'll put a time mark where row 14 begins. Just keep in mind that as you repeat these rows, especially if you're looking at the video for each repeat, that these are going to be different. But just remember that when you have the front side facing, you just maintain what is happening with the front or the back post. When you have the back side facing, you're going to switch it out. You're going to reverse it. Okay, so go ahead and repeat rows 14 and 15 3 times more. This is what you should have after completing 21 rows. Now for row 22, we're actually going to do another large crossing like we did down here. So let me talk through this a little bit first. For the first one here, we're actually going to do a back cross. So this column is going to stay on top. These columns with the solid 4 front post double crochets are always going to stay on top when we cross. So what that means is that this will be a back cross, which is like this one down here. So they're going to go back out. This is going to be a front cross where you work in front. That's the easier of the two crosses. And then this again will be a back cross, and then this will be a front cross. And I'm going to work these with you so that the video instruction is as clear as I can possibly make it. All right. So starting with row 22, I've chained 2. And again, with the front side facing, we maintain what we see on these end stitches, which are the basket weave, the double basket weave, ribbed kind of a thing we got going here. Okay, 2 back posts after those 2. And then 2 front posts. All right, waddle stitch in that waddle stitch, and then after this we're going to be ready to get down to business on these large crossings. First thing we're going to do is skip those first 4 stitches, and remember we're working a double crochet instead of a half double when we do these large crosses, and front post treble crochets when doing the crossing. So 1 front post treble in each of these 4 stitches. Okay, now I said the first one is going to be a back cross, and the way you can tell is you're going to want to keep these stitches on the surface, which means you're going to have to work behind them. So we're going to come in for this back cross into the, I'm going to show you from the back side, there's just a big opening here. I'm just bringing my hook in here, locating this first of the 4 stitches with my finger, and that's going to help guide my hook around that stitch for that front post treble. I'm going to do that again in the second stitch, which is right here. That's 2. And for the third, coming in again, that same big hole right there. There's the third one. Locate it. Well, let's try that one again since it slipped off the hook right there. And one more. Just like that, and then we work that waddle stitch. Let's just pause and take a look at that for a second. You see how this column goes up and then it goes back out again. Now for the next set of columns, we're going to skip the next 4 stitches, and in that next stitch, which is the half double, we're going to work a double crochet. This will be much more straightforward. Front post treble in the next 4 stitches. These are the stitches that make up our 4-post cable. Okay, so after working those 4 stitches, we're going to come all the way over here, and we're going to work front post trebles here, 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 and here. And this is a front cross. We work in front, just like this. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. And let's work our waddle stitch. So that's what we're going to do. So we just have to do it each of those one more time, and I'm going to go ahead and just work these with you because this is still early in the design. Skip those 4 stitches, work a double crochet, that's the taller stitch, front post treble in the next 4 stitches. Let me try that one again. Excuse me. All right, after those 4 stitches, we want to keep this on the top, so we're going to work a back cross, coming into that back hole again. I'm going to work these a little bit faster than the last one. One, and the next is right here. 2, again, I'm using the nerve endings in my finger and my thumb to help me locate these. Once you learn how to do these front and back crosses in this particular way, there are so many patterns that I have that are, you know, slightly different from each other, but incorporate, you know, very common procedures for making these stitches. I think you'll really enjoy. All right, so waddle stitch that next chain 1 space. Let's pause and take a look at this. So now you can see we've kind of made our first really large honeycomb, what I'm going to call the twisted honeycomb, because it has the twisties on one side, and then you can just clearly see the honeycomb shape. I think this is going to be really fun. And let's go ahead and do the other one. This is going to be a front cross. I'm going to skip those 4 stitches. And do a double crochet, and then again 4 front post trebles, and like I said, we're going to keep these solid 4 post columns on the surface, which means we're going to do a front cross, which is we just come over here and cross in front of those last 5 stitches. And of course this is the easier of the 2 crosses, but once you get used to doing the back cross, it's really not an issue. It's just understanding where the hook goes and how those stitches are formed, and that does take a little bit of time, so do give yourself some time to learn these stitches if this is your first exposure. All right, waddle stitch in that chain 1 space, and then we finish out. We have the front side facing, so we maintain what we have. 2 back post double crochets, 2 front post double crochets, and then 2 back post double crochets. Well, let's try that one again. This yarn has a slightly different texture than what I'm used to with the superwash merino. Okay, and then a half double, and there we go. But one thing I've noticed that I'm really enjoying about this yarn is it just gives it a very delicate, lacy effect. And I think for the most part, clear stitch definition. All right, so that is row 22. Now for row 23, we're going to turn, chain 2, and again, back sides facing, so it's time to change the direction of this basket weave. So we work 2 back post. Try not to get tangled up in any other stitches. 2 front post, and 2 back post double crochets. Remember, we only use the treble crochets when crossing the cables. All right, wattle stitch in that chain 1 from last row's wattle stitch. And this is where we just work back post double crochets. Let's try that one again. There we go. Back post double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, half double in between that last stitch and next stitch. This is again the center where those 2 columns cross, and then we do 4 more back post double crochets. So let's try that one again. That's 3 and 4. And as I said before, we added 1 stitch in, but we're also skipping a stitch, so the stitch count stays constant. And then a wattle stitch in that chain 1 space, and then we do 4 more, etc. So 4 more back post double crochets, a half double. Let's go ahead, half double right here in between where those columns cross, and then 4 more back post double crochets, which are right here. So work that all the way across, and again the wattle stitches, you know what to do there. And then we are reversing this: 2 front posts, 2 back posts, 2 front posts, and a half double in the turning chain. So go ahead and complete row 23. This is what you should have after completing 23 rows. All right, for row 24, let me talk a little bit about this before we start. I'm going to go ahead and do the post stitches here, which is just maintaining what we see, and the wattle stitch. And then when we get to these stitches, these 4 post stitches are just going to have 4 front post double crochets. We will have the half double and the half double, but this is where this twisty 4 post cable needs to be maintained. So this has gone under here. So when we come over here, I'm going to work this one with you and show you that you need to make sure that you do the 4 post cable here, the 4 post cable here, here, and over here. And I'll work these with you. So after having worked those post stitches, again, maintaining the stitches that you see, wattle stitch and those 4 front post double crochets, and then we have a half double right here. You might have to pull these stitches back a bit to find these. Now you have 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches here, and this is where we bring that 4 post cable back to life here after it went under the bridge, so to speak. So we skip 2 stitches, a front post treble in those next 2 stitches, and then coming back, need to be very deliberate to find these front post treble in those 2 skip stitches. First the one furthest away, and then the one right next to it, just like that. And once we've done that, then we know that the subsequent rows that follow we'll remember because we have the visual reminder. It's just on this row, row 24, we have to remember and create that visual reminder. Okay, so we have a wattle stitch here. And looking at this, this is where the next 4 post is formed. So skip 2 stitches. Front post treble in the next 2 stitches. Working in front of those 2 stitches. Front post treble in the 2 skipped stitches. Now these are the treble, I'm sorry, the post stitches, those 4, grouping of 4. Be careful that you don't, get stitches from lower rows. Like you can see stitches down here, but that's from a lower previous row, not the row that we're working on. All right, and then we work a half double, and then 4 more front post double crochets. There we go. Then we do another wattle stitch. And then let's take a look at this. Okay, so this 4-post cable is going under and it's going to be on this side. So I'm just thinking out loud so that you understand how these are formed, because once you understand this and get the visual representation of the pattern, you really are not you're not as tied to having to read every single row. Now some of you may need that, and that's fine. Okay, wattle stitch here, and if you do need that pattern, I do have that available. Just look in the video description for that information where you can locate the pattern, and you can check the rows off as you go. Okay, skip these next 2 stitches, front post treble in the next 2, because we are continuing this from underneath here, and then front post treble in the 2 stitches that we just skipped. All right, and then another wattle stitch, and now this is the last one here. So we see the 4-post cable on this side, and it's going to be formed first right over here. So skip 1, 2 stitches, front post treble in the next 2, working in front of those 2 stitches, front post treble in the 2 skip stitches. I know it may sound like a broken record at this point for those of you who are old enough to understand that reference. Half double, work through the tops, and then 4 front post double crochets just straight across there. Wattle stitch, and then we'll finish out 2 front posts, 2 back posts, 2 front post double crochets, and a half double in the turning chain. So go ahead and finish out row 24. This is what you should have after completing 24 rows, and you can see how this honeycomb is beautifully formed. And as we go further, you're going to have 2 that are going to be on the side up in here. So let's go on to row 25. I'm going to turn, chain 2, and I'll go ahead and work through these. I'm going to change the direction, so it'll be 2 front posts, 2 back posts, 2 front posts, and then a wattle stitch. And let me just go ahead and talk you through this. Then we're going to work 4 back post double crochets, a half double, 4 back post double crochets, a wattle stitch, and again just 4 back post double crochets, half double, 4 back post, and then a wattle stitch, etc. across. And then we work 2 back post, 2 front post, 2 back posts. So go ahead and work row 25. This is what you should have after completing 25 rows. Now for rows 26 through 31, we are just going to repeat rows 24 and 25. Rows 24 is where you just work front post double crochets, and then you work the 4-post cable, and then work row 25 is where you work basically back post double crochets across on these cables. You do need to be careful that when you work the front side facing of the basket weave, that you work what you see. If you see a front post, work front post, and when you have the back side facing, that's when you switch the direction of the basket weave. So go ahead and work rows 26 through 31. If you need the time mark, look across the bottom of the screen. I'll put a time mark down there for you so you can go back and review rows 24 and 25 if you need to. This is what you should have after completing 31 rows. Now I have a huge assignment for you to complete this scarf. We are going to repeat rows 12, which is the row right down here where we started with a front cross and then a back cross, all the way through row 31, which is the row that we just finished. So the easiest way to do this is if you look at the bottom of the screen, across the bottom I'll put a time mark where row 12 down here begins, and everything including the basket weave ribbing on the side is the same. So you're going to watch rows 12 through 31 and look across the bottom of the screen again, and I will show you, I'll put how many rows that I worked to complete this scarf. Now that said, you can complete more repetitions or fewer. It's up to you, depending on how long you want your scarf, or if you're making a stole with thicker yarn, you know, how long you want that to be. It's really up to you. But then afterwards, we're going to return and I'll show you how to finish off with these additional rows, and then we're going to return to the basket weave ribbing at the end. So again, go ahead and repeat rows 12 through 31 as many times as indicated. All right, I have worked this continually until this is approximately 58 inches long, and it's still 9.5 or so inches wide. All right, so let me show you where I have stopped. I have repeated the pattern stitch again and again, and look at the bottom of the screen, and I'll put exactly how many rows this is and how many repeats. So I am going to end this by working through that pattern stitch, and I have worked, you know, the main crossing of the cables, these columns here, and then I've worked 1, 2 crossings on the 4-post cable. Okay, I just want to be very specific on that, so I don't want to confuse you with specific row numbers that, you know, in the hundreds at this point isn't going to mean a whole lot. So I'm also going to say that if you want your scarf or stole shorter than this, of course, you are free to do that. And if you want it to continue to just grow in length, you can do that as well. But whatever you do, make sure you stop at this point, and this way, this will mirror the image. Let me go ahead and show you. Mirror the image where we first began. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to transition back to straight, we're still going to be using post stitches, but we're going to transition back to the basket weave ribbing. All right. So let me show you how to do that. We're going to be changing a lot of these wattle stitches back to regular stitches. All right, so we're just going to call this the transition row. We're going to chain 2. Now we're just going to continue the basket weave as we've been working. So we have the back side facing, so it's time to change the direction. We work 2 front post double crochets, 2 back post double crochets, followed by 2 more front post double crochets. Now as we work, the main difference that we're going to be doing is what we work inside the wattle stitches. So what we're going to do is we're going to skip, this is for every wattle stitch, skip that double crochet. We're going to work 2 half double crochets and then 1 half double crochet in that single crochet, which again is part of that wattle stitch. So take a good look at that. And then as we work the back side of these cables, we're going to just do what we've done before. We're going to work back post double crochets, over those next 4 stitches. Trying to be very deliberate here. Half double, worked in the half double, and then again back post, double crochets whenever you see the cables or the post stitches from the last row. Okay, and then we come to another wattle stitch. Again, skip the double crochet. We're going to work a half double or 2 half doubles into that chain 1 space and 1 into the single crochet, and then again back to back post double crochets on the post stitches. So let's go ahead and pause this and just talk a little bit more. We're going to work just again half doubles in the half double crochet, 4 more back post double crochets, and then again the wattle stitch. Skip the double crochet, 2 half doubles in the chain 1 space and 1 in the single crochet. As we work across, we're going to need to make an adjustment in this last wattle stitch just so that our basket weave will work out as we end this project. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you work 3 half double crochets in that last chain 1 space and then 1 in that single crochet. So make sure that you have 4 stitches in that last wattle stitch, okay? And then we work those 2 back post double crochets followed by 2 front post double crochets and then 2 more back post double crochets, half double in that turning chain. So that will bring our stitch count for that transition row back to 64 stitches. All right, that's not including the turning chain. Then we're going to turn, and now the next 5 rows are actually going to be working the basket weave, the 2-stitch basket weave all the way across. We start, this is the first or transition row number 2. We're going to skip that half double as usual, front post double crochet in those first 2 stitches, followed by 2 back post double crochets, and then 2 front post double crochets. Now working over the rest of these stitches, we're just going to continue the basket weave. So 2 front post, so now we're going to work 2 back post double crochets just to maintain the pattern. Then we follow that with 2 front post double crochets. Notice we're just working over these half doubles the same that we would the post stitches, treating them all the same. And then 2 back post, etc. So we're going to work this alternating front post, back post, front post, back post, all the way across the row. So go ahead and work that, and I will meet you at the end where we join it back with the edging on the other side. Now that we approach the end of the row, let me go ahead and show you where we are. We've just worked 2 back post double crochets. It's time to follow that with 2 front post double crochets, and then you see it perfectly matches with the end ribbing by working 2 back post. We're just maintaining what we see with the front side facing, then 2 front post double crochets followed by 2 back post double crochets, and then a half double worked into that turning chain. So that's what you should have. You should have ended, quite evenly there. So now we're going to turn. This is row 3. Transition row was row 1, and the row we just worked was row 2. So now what we're going to do, we're going to work rows 3, 4, 5, and 6. And they basically are going to be very similar, very much the same. So chain 2, we're going to start with back post, double crochet, because we're changing the direction since we have the back side facing. That's all that you really have to remember for these last 4 rows. And then front post, double crochet in the next 2 stitches, and then etc. Back post in the next 2, front post, etc. all the way across. And then when you get to the end of this row, and after you turn, you will have a back post facing you. Then you just do the same thing again. Back post in the next 2 stitches, front post in the next 2. And so go ahead and complete that row, and then also go ahead and complete rows 4, 5, and 6 in a similar manner. So I wanted to show you what this looks like after completing those 6 rows. And I've just fastened off with a chain, and I am going to hide all my loose ends using that yarn needle. Well, I hope you enjoyed crocheting my wisteria scarf with me today. If you did, I would love to hear from you. Please feel free to comment in the comment section below. And if you want to send me pictures of your completed items, I love receiving those. You can send them to my email, which is also in the video description, but I'll tell it to you now. It's bonniebay@me.com, and I do respond to these emails as often and as quickly as I can. Well, God bless. Bye-bye.